tuning in to the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Oh yeah, Brandon Calhoun, bring us in.
I still don't know the words.
Really? I don't know if I have them really down, but I dig this song. So I still need to get out there and get it on iTunes, but it's good. I love this jam. When I hear it coming on every week, it just puts me in a good mood.
It was a befitting song.
Oh yeah, definitely. Hey, AfterBuzzers, and welcome to another Battle Creek After Show. Tonight we're talking not just one, but two episodes. Episode 11, The Handoff, and Episode 12, Homecoming. And before we dive into all that, want to make sure you guys out there subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/AfterBuzzTV. You can also catch all of our weekly after shows on iTunes and SoundCloud as well, so be sure to get over there, subscribe, rate, comment, download, you name it, all that good stuff. And throughout the week, be sure to tweet to us because we want to know what you guys think of the show, and we will get back to you. You can find me on Twitter at Lauren Salaun, as usual, and I'm joined tonight with Gary Thomas, as usual. Gary, where can everyone find you?
I am Gary Thomas on Instagram and Twitter, and I am GaryThomas.com.
Perfect. So, starting with The Handoff. This episode opens up with Funk and Russ heading to kind of a, recognition ceremony from what happened the week before when Russ was kidnapped. And that gets derailed, much to Russ's pleasure, I guess, because because
he's not social.
He's not for that. He's like, oh great, we don't have to go to this whole this hullabaloo, I guess. And so they get called to a shooting at a park where the shooter has fled, and they arrive on the scene, and it's what appears to be a woman helping this man who had just been shot. And she says, oh, my daughter's over there, I'm a doctor, here's what we need to do. She seems super composed and together.
Well, she's a doctor. I was okay with her being composed because this is her
definitely.
job. She knows how to handle this. But the little girl is just like, dude, I'm going to continue to swing.
Right.
Somebody got shot. What was wrong with her?
I know. The daughter, she's like, okay, I'm going to come with you guys, make sure everything's okay. Keep the officer here to stay with my daughter. And she's just like, on the swing, no big deal. Right. And especially because later we find out that
it was her dad.
Yes, that it's not just some guy who got shot, which I think would be traumatic anyway.
If I saw someone get shot, I'm not gonna just be swinging on the swing. First of all, I probably would have ran.
Right, and if your mom's there, helping to save this man and this situation,
you're right there, mom.
Right, but then if it's your dad who was just shot, she's
you're
just
frantic.
Exactly, and she's just swinging along. Maybe she's in shock. Maybe that's what's going on. But I don't know.
She's a weirdo.
I was impressed by, yes, doctors, need to be able to go and get into the zone in the moment and do their doctor stuff. But I was still very impressed by how calm and collected she was.
Well, I think maybe she went into more, not just doctor mode, but maternal mode.
Right.
She had her daughter here. She has to be a doctor. And, she broke down a little bit later. We see that, she was holding it together in, just for the moment. But once they got to the hospital, she was a mess. Yeah,
I know. She broke down later, but was definitely, held it together. And I thought that was one of the more intense openings that we've had on the show. It definitely felt like, there was a lot of blood. This guy might not make it. Usually, there's a body. I feel like most of the time there's a body or some sort of joke. So it's not that high intensity, but we don't know if this guy's going to make it. And just the emotions, I think, were definitely heightened with that opening more than others we've seen.
I agree. She did a really good job of the whole episode. She was really good.
Right. And so pretty early in, we learned that the husband and wife have been separated, but they kind of more recently had been working things out, and they were meeting there to do a handoff, hence the title of tonight's episode.
Which you did not get at first.
I didn't get it first because, and we can get to this, we'll get to it later, but I think there's a little double entendre going on there. But
oh yeah. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah. Okay. So the husband and wife are meeting to do the handoff with the daughter about custody, and she tells us that they've been talking about possibly getting back together. And I think in that moment I was like, oh, something fishy is probably going on here. And I turned around and asked Gary, I'm like, okay, do you think the wife did it?
I was like, no.
And I'm like, I do. Well, I was wrong.
Because in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, Lauren's probably right. Because that's kind of how the show goes. Like, they always give it a twist like that. And it's
and
the
I'm
person right in front of our
right.
eyes. That was the person. Well, I won't say you're normally right. I'll just say that they always put the killer right in front of our eyes.
That's the thing. I'm like, the killer's usually shown pretty early on, and there's usually a twist of some sort. And so that's why I was like, I bet it's the wife. I bet she's being tricky. And
I didn't want you to be right. I'm wrong.
Things aren't so peachy keen. But no, she was an upstanding doctor, mom, wife. So we do learn that the kind of first suspect that they are thinking about is the man's neighbor. So this guy's name's Derek, and we think it's Derek's neighbor. They were having some issue about a tree, and they end up going to court, and Derek won, like all this stuff. And this neighbor ends up putting fake tombstones out on his lawn during Halloween, but that say this guy's name on them and left them up, which is super bizarre. And, I mean...
It's just ridiculous. Like,
I'm sure we've all had those weird neighbors that do stupid things like that, or like with parking, all sorts of stuff. So it's not that far-fetched. Like, I didn't...
Tombstones?
Yeah, but that's a little extreme.
And then the checks that he wrote?
Yeah. Like what were they?
Derek Dinkwinkle or Derek Dummy? Like,
Derek Doofus Henderson or whatever his last name was. It's just so immature, but...
Still got my money.
Yeah, you still got those checks. Though, if someone writes your name completely wrong like that and it's not really your correct name, can you still take it to the bank?
Depends how you cash it.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, I think they went through. But anyway, so we first think that it's the neighbor is the key suspect. And then Milt ends up having a little meeting with an old associate of his from the FBI. And
his dad.
It wasn't his dad.
I think it's his dad. Because this is why I think it's his dad. Because the relationship they had, it was a kind of funny thing. Okay. And I'm almost certain that he said his mom's name was Nancy. Later on in that situation, he said, I heard about you and Nancy's, the separation. Mm-hmm. That was his father.
I don't completely agree with you.
I just want to be right for once.
I feel like we would know that.
Well, that was...
He was like an older version of Milt. Very charming, great bone structure, nice hair, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, and he was in Detroit.
Yes. So I don't know.
I'm thinking that's his father.
Okay. I don't know that it'll get answered in the one episode we have left.
They better answer it.
Yeah, but... So it did seem a little weird that this guy was thrown into the mix. I feel like watching it now, you kind of assume that he would come back into the picture maybe next season or something. But since we won't have a next season, that might not get answered, or that might just be a loose end.
Which is making me curious to know if they rewrote these episodes.
Right.
When they found out, the show was going to be canceled. Because it's just now, these two episodes we saw today was just so intense and so different. And we saw so many different things all in one. It was just like, you threw all of this at us in 1 week.
Like they're trying to quickly tie things up that the audience probably is wanting answers to.
Exactly. Like Milt's dad.
Because, like Milt's dad. I don't know, because here's the thing. That would be a lot of work. And I feel like usually when you get a show order, you make them all.
Well,
and you don't go back. But if you find out, would you go back and revise them like that? I don't know.
Or maybe they shot them and just, because the show is not very super continuous, they were able to maybe move it up.
Pick up and drop in and shoot more.
And just probably maybe shoot a scene or something and just kind of...
And on to that point, Dean Winters, who plays Russ, he's got a lot of scruff going on, which he didn't have the last few weeks, I don't think. And I mean, come on, that doesn't take like that long to grow the amount of scruff that he's got going on, but it's a lot more than what he usually sports. So if that's true, and he was like, oh, but I'm rocking a beard right now, and they're like, whatever, we'll just film 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, First of all, I feel like I want to meet Dean Winters now. Like,
I know, he's
these
so
two
cool.
episodes just made him seem so
He's
cool
so cool.
to me.
I was actually doing some research on him today randomly, and read that he didn't start acting until he was like 30, which is kind of a late start.
How old is he now?
He's probably early 40s or something. I don't know.
So
we could look it up
30,
real quick, but I don't want to waste our time doing that.
What? I've been wasting
Or maybe
my
that
whole
was like
life
he
on
didn't
an
actually
actor.
start getting any jobs until then. I don't know, but that's kind of a late start to actually.
It is a really late start. But you know what? That's kind of the thing with acting. You know, you've noticed that a lot of people's big breaks don't come until they're older. Like Halle Berry's big break didn't come until she was in her late 20s.
Yeah.
You know, not everyone is the...
There's still a chance.
Yeah, not everyone's the Denzel
We can
Washington
do
who's
it.
been, acting since he got out of the damn wound. Like, so...
Has Denzel's
Denzel's
been acting since he was a
forever.
little kid?
Yes.
Wow, interesting. I did not know that either. Look at all these new fun facts that we're learning.
Speaking of actors, this show pulls out all the greatest actors ever. And
we get a lot of fun
I think that's the coolest part. I
it.
think that's what really keeps me, wanting to watch this show, just the guests they have and just, the cast itself, because it's just been some phenomenal actors.
Right.
Not even just super big names, just phenomenal actors, So
I will say, though, that sometimes that's the clue to who the killer was.
Yes,
because it
normally
usually ends up being that bigger name guest actor. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, we'll get to the next episode, but that's what happened with the Homecoming episode, too. I was like, oh,
well, this one had Patrick Fischler in there. I told you that one. So he's I just think they pulled out some good actors.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun to see them all work together.
I would say that even though this show's ending, if I was to say my season favorite was all the great actors they pulled out.
I agree. It's a lot of fun to see who guests each week. So Milt meets with his old coworker / dad, and
look how protective he was of him.
Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't want him to like mess up and like put a bad, name on the FBI, I guess, or his department, or in his dad on the Chamberlain name.
Right.
So he ends up kind of asking this guy for a favor because he wants, not really just asking him for a favor. He kind of blackmails him into getting a favor, and because he wants to get, NSA surveillance information on who the killer was so that they can just go in there and find him. Because Milt's reasoning is kind of like, well, I don't want this to be the beginning of a string of shootings, blah, blah, blah.
Because they have no real evidence to go on.
Right, there's nothing. Yeah, they have no real evidence to go on, and there's no real reason for the FBI to get involved anyway. So Milt's trying to give a reason for the FBI to get involved so that they can help solve the case faster.
Yeah.
The guy that he meets with doesn't want to do it, and so Milt's like, well, I seem to remember an FBI agent who used NSA surveillance to spy on his lying wife.
His mother.
I don't think you would say it that way if it's your mom.
Well, that's why he calls her Nancy, and they don't get along.
Hey, that's true. I think her name was Nancy.
I'm just trying to connect the dots, like they were trying to do in the show.
I hope I hope we learn some of these answers next week. They've got a lot of questions they need to answer for us in one short episode. I don't know if it's all going to happen.
They had to go back to the drawing board where they thought I was going to be canceled.
Seriously, I don't know if it's all going to happen. So we get this. Milt finds out who the shooter is. He comes into the station, and they're like, okay, well, it's the neighbor, and they're ready to go charge down the neighbor's door. And Milt's like, nope, I know who it is. I have a confidential informant, and I can't tell you how I got this information, but that's who it is. We have to figure out how to, connect the dots, essentially, like you just said. So they know who it is. They can't say how they got the evidence because Milt, won't tell them, but then they can't just get a warrant because it wasn't obtained legally. Right. So they've got to connect all these dots. I was kind of hoping we would see a little bit with the neighbor, just because he sounded like such a ridiculous character. I thought that would provide a lot of comedy for the episode too. That.
It would have been the comedic taste for the whole episode, which was actually very few and far in between these two episodes.
These two weren't too, we had some funny moments, I think, but it wasn't comedy heavy. And like we've said many times before, we like the more serious episodes with the comedy sprinkled in.
I think that's what kept us in there for so long to watch these two episodes back and back.
It was a little rocky the first few weeks, I think, because they were trying to make it too funny and too much comedy.
Right.
And I think the last couple of weeks we've had, it's definitely been the right balance of seriousness and crime and comedy sprinkled in there, and a little romance that
I
we've had
know.
lately, which has been really fun. So they find the name of the guy. They decide to like basically just go in for him and find this guy. What was his name? Something Russian. Kowalski. They get Kowalski. They go into his apartment, find this bloody sweatshirt in his wash, all this stuff. They end up having to go to court and, speak with the judge. And the judge throws out the warrant because they won't come clean about how they got
the information.
And Milt decides to kind of step up and take the blame for that rather than letting Russ kind of fall on it, which Milt should because it was his idea.
But it's not an FBI case.
Right. It's not an FBI case, but Milt, decided to cross that line and do that, which I was kind of surprised about on the whole because Milt is usually such a straight-laced, like, by-the-book kind of guy.
Well, we've seen him do stuff like this before. Not quite to this capacity of blackmailing, but we've seen him do some things to get some information. Like, he basically manipulates a lot of people.
Right.
Just does it in a nice
way.
But
it made me feel like there was something more about this case that we would find out later. Like he knew something, some sort of secret about the case or about the bad guy or the couple or something.
I think that's what they want you to think, but really, we're just learning Milt.
Yeah.
That's what we've been
that
waiting
he's
for
willing
so
to
many.
kind of fudge those rules a little.
That's like from the first episode to this one, what we've been waiting for to find out something out about him. Just continue to learn what is behind this super nice guy that everyone's in love with, but it's something sinister about him.
Yeah. No, I don't know about sinister. I know you've got it out for Milt a little bit sometimes.
I do.
I don't think sinister. I think he's just not all like perfect charming. I mean, he is charming all the time,
but
he's
got patty like
sometimes he's got some ulterior motives going on under there.
Yeah,
which I think is fun. Gives him a little bit more character, spices him up a little bit.
Exactly, because he was like, we don't want him to be boring, but we always knew there was something about him. But I'm glad that he actually did that. But I felt like because Russ was the one that kind of like coerced him to just go ahead and do this. And he was like not for doing it without connecting the dots, and then he did it anyway. He just kind of took the fall for it.
Right, which was the good thing to do. And so Russ ends up Milt ends up getting suspended because of this, which I mean,
they wanted to transfer him.
Yeah, they wanted to transfer him, all this stuff, and we see Milt get off the phone when I'm assuming he gets the news about that. And like slams his phone on the table, breaks it, and then throws it into a drawer full of a ton of other broken phones, which was not only funny, but also, again, gets to seeing a lot more behind Milt and that pretty facade he puts up because he's got a little bit of a temper going on and clearly doesn't always get his way based on how many phones are in that drawer.
How does he control it?
He doesn't. He just breaks phones all the time.
So, I mean, not in private he doesn't, but he controls in front of people all the time. That's kind of an interesting thing to look at about him. He always is in control.
But he did that in his office, so
when no one would see him.
Yeah, but it's like glass windows.
He was kind of turned the other way, and like the way I don't even think it was daytime. I think it was like an evening
it did
thing,
seem
at the end of the day.
Dark. So he could have been there by himself or something.
And like their office is over here, and then his is like across the hall and behind his secretary. So it's not that easy for somebody to see him smash down the desk.
And during his suspension, we learned that he's decided to take some like jam making classes, which is adorable. And I know I was thinking, okay, if I was an FBI agent and I got suspended for something, like I'd probably just like lay around on the couch and watch a lot of TV and like
sulk.
Work out and sulk. Like that's what Russ says too. Like, oh, why aren't you just like getting drunk somewhere and moping around? And he's like, you want to like boil them at that temperature, all this stuff. And he's like, cheery little Milt making his jam.
Exactly. And he gives Russ some later.
Yeah, he comes into the station later to kind of help out and gives Russ some jam. He's like, you might want to
pumpernickel bread.
Use it on some pumpernickel bread. May want to let it sit for like a day, let it really cure, So again, the quirky sides of Milt. But of course he's like suspended and wants to go learn a new skill.
I'm just so interested in meeting them and seeing how they interact together out, off camera. Like, this is just such a weird two weird actors they put together, like when they casted these two. So it's just
I think they're so fun together though too.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of just so off and just it adds. I think that's part of it. Is part of why the comedic parts do work when they, when they do come across.
Because, like the odd couple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that was fun. So we end up back to kind of the core of the crime. They make some connections between Derek, the husband who was shot, and Kowalski, Kowalski, who's the shooter, his wife. So Derek and the wife had some calls going back and forth. And so they're like, oh, well, maybe this guy was having an affair with that guy's husband or wife, and that's why he shot him. And we end up learning that that wasn't the case. He was her radiologist, I believe, because the
one
wife
of the radiologists working with.
Yeah, so the wife of the shooter has cancer. Yeah, and she had been doing some new experimental treatment, and the husband who got shot was, involved in that study, I guess. So that's why they're interacting in some capacity. And so that kind of throws that out the door. And we also see the shooter go to the hospital, packs a bag, goes to the hospital. Everyone thinks that he's going to finish the job. And they're like, well, there was no gun and we didn't find a gun anywhere. But it's like, you don't need a gun to kill a guy in a coma.
All you need is a pillow.
Yeah. And so little Niblet decides to play as bait, gets in the hospital, but he was so scared. He was so scared. We barely see Niblet, but he's a funny little guy.
That's your character.
He's not my character. I just appreciate him. So Niblet gets in the hospital bed, posing as bait, and Kowalski walks right by and goes
to oncology
and gets the study. So that kind of theory falls apart, and
all the theories fall apart. Mexico, we forgot that part. He's going to Mexico because she's going there for the new treatment. Everything just fell apart left and right. Like, I was like getting hopeless about maybe it's not him at all.
Well, and I had my money on it being the wife, like the whole time. Not that she shot him, but
you were thinking like Milt.
Yeah,
and
I was on the
side of Russ because this was I'm getting a little bit more acquainted with Russ. Yeah, and this time I was going with him. This whole episode was really weird with Russ.
It was, yeah. Russ was very not like Russ normally is. He was much more optimistic, which Milt calls out quite a bit, and he's getting flirted. Like, all these women are flirting with him so much.
This positive energy was radiating. He listened to the kidnapper and he got his ish together.
Yeah, like he had this connection with
he started caring.
The wife, the doctor in the beginning, because they rescued Derek, and then throughout, she asked to talk to him mainly.
Oh my gosh. And then she was like Googling eyeing him the whole episode.
Oh, the doctor at not the wife doctor, but yeah, that doctor too. I was like, oh my gosh, like what? I'm like, girl, back off, because he wants Holly. So you get out of here, because we only have 2 episodes left, and you're not going to be the girl that comes into the picture.
Exactly. We're not going to have this right now. We've been waiting too long for him and Holly.
Like, you cannot
come in this picture right now.
Yeah, I'm like, you're cute, and maybe if we had like another season, you guys could date a little, and then he could end up with Holly. But we don't have time for this.
Exactly, because we only have 2 episodes left. I need you to beat it.
Yeah, I'm like, I need you to get out of here. Russ, I need you to not call her, which he did, but then he did.
She didn't answer.
Up. Yeah. So anyway, back to our case. So they conclude essentially that the shooter, Kowalski, ends up having gotten wired $50,000. And then pays that to the clinic in Mexico for his wife's treatment. So the department ends up concluding that he is a hitman, and everyone assumes that it was the wife, like I did as well. And so Russ and Milt go and question the wife at the hospital, and she seems totally believable.
She was believable because she was telling the truth.
Because she was innocent.
She was telling the truth.
Because she was an honest person who didn't try and hire a hitman to kill her husband.
Sometimes you have a sixth sense, and Russ has always had a sixth sense, and now I think that he tapped into he went back to being a caring person. He was already like, no, this can't be her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she tells them they were talking, things have been rough, and so there was a real reason why they had separated, but they'd been talking lately about reconciling and getting back together, and she tells them about how they went out to dinner the night before and had such a great dinner and just really reconnected, and it was amazing, and even says go talk to the people at the restaurant, and so they do, and the waitress at the restaurant is like, oh my gosh, they were so cute and they looked so in love, like all this stuff. So even more, backing up the wife's story. And I think Milt was the one who said, well, could it just be a coincidence that this waitress was in earshot of them while they're eating there?
Do all of this that would be a lot of work, to make sure they heard this specific conversation. And then
right, especially if you're on bad terms with somebody and you quickly have to make it seem like everything's
exactly,
okay.
because you have to not only make sure they hear it, but coerce this other person into saying certain things as well. Like, that was just too big of a speculation to even think. Like, that was, Mel, come on. It's just so much work.
Well, and at that point, I was kind of thinking, oh, okay, well, I guess it wasn't her. And shortly after that, we find out that she had taken $10,000 out of her daughter's college fund, which obviously is not $50,000, but taken a considerable chunk out of her daughter's college fund right around the time that the shooting is going to take place. So that then puts more suspicion back on the wife. So I felt like at that point I wasn't 100% sure. Like, I'm like, okay, well, I guess maybe it is the wife again, but what's going on? I feel like they did a good job of kind of pointing us in a bunch of different directions with this episode.
Because they were just kind of like left and right trying to smash her story, like then they brought the recording up of them arguing.
Right.
And then the check they showed her, which she didn't write.
Yeah. That part when it all started coming together was pretty sneaky. We learned that the husband was recording their fights and sending them to the social worker to kind of prove that the wife was, he said she's depressed and unfit mother, negligent, all this stuff to try and win sole custody over the daughter. And so that kind of then puts, tainted the wife again.
Because normally, a woman would do anything to protect her child, and that's what she said in the conversation. So it was like, well,
right.
Do we really want to believe her?
Right. And,
she might be a little crazy.
If they're going through this thing, like, off your husband, there you go, you got custody.
She's a doctor. She could have done this
she could have slipped him something pretty easily, right?
There's no reason she had to do all that to patch up his wound. If she saw him a shot, she could just be acting frantic and not
especially exactly, if she didn't want him in the picture,
exactly,
just let him bleed out. So they find this recording, husband wakes up and they're super sweet together. So then again, you're like, okay, well, now who is lying and who's telling the truth? Because clearly they are on the same page, but when she talks to him and she's asking him what he remembers and stuff like that, he doesn't specifically say he remembers anything from the day of the shooting, aside from when she said, oh, we're going to go pick apples this weekend, so hang in there, sort of thing, like her last word of hope to him. So he didn't remember the stuff that morning, which made me kind of wonder, okay, well, he's got amnesia then. And she still is behind it.
You were really fishing for Sarah's story.
I was really going for the wife still. I was really going for it. And then even, Goose questions the wife and is pretty hard on her. And
Goose was a beast in
yeah, she was like
crazy.
No nonsense questioning this mom did it. And then we see the check come out and the wife's like, this isn't my handwriting.
I didn't write that.
Yeah. And ultimately we learn a little bit that Derek, the husband, has a bit of a gambling problem. So then they think, okay, well, this is a gambling debt that they're trying to settle. Somebody he owes money to is wanted to kill him instead. And so then I'm like, oh, okay, well, there we go. That one kind of satisfied me. I'm like, okay, on to a new direction. Okay, so now
we have a killer,
Yeah.
It's not the wife.
Exactly. But ultimately, we learned that the husband, Derek, hired Kowalski to kill the wife. And then changed his mind after that dinner they had. So it's like all so twisted and also a little romantic at the same time. He's like, oh, I want sole custody. My wife's a pain in the ass. So let's off her. And then they have this great dinner together. And he's like, oh, just kidding. I don't want her to die. And then jumps in front of the bullet when he sees the hitman. Here's the thing. Okay. I've watched a few shows recently, actually, that involve a hitman. Mm-hmm. And so much of the time and a couple of them where the person who has hired the hitman wants to call it off and they can't get a hold of the hitman.
Of course not.
Which makes sense, I guess. But you would think that, I don't know, I guess if you're going to do that, you are pretty serious about wanting to kill the person. It's not just like a little thought that
But if they're
in.
calling you you know.
But I would think you'd, as a good hit person,
You would stay in communication.
you'd stay in communication until it's done.
Well, if he's already been paid.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If it's already been paid, I'm sure they say, I mean, I've never like met a hitman and talked to one before, but I'm sure they say, okay, once you give me this money, this is like set in stone and it's happening. Don't ever contact me again.
I would think
that's how they do it, but
goes.
man, there's got to be some sort of like, I guess there isn't a way to call it off aside from jumping in front of the bullet yourself. But
yeah, he was trying to get there to get them out of there, so he could save them.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess my whole point is, if you're gonna hire somebody to kill someone else, like make sure you really mean it.
Right. How about you either really mean it, or if you're gonna stop it, how about you do some forth planning to stop it? Like that last night when you were at dinner with her, you could have been like, instead of meeting tomorrow, how about we just, hang out tonight or something?
Just
like,
not gone to the park.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna be late tomorrow. Like, why don't you meet me at my office or something? Like, why would you still have her go to the same place the hitman's gonna come? So if we just came to the place,
seriously, actually, what
we
a
could have really
dummy.
prevented this. Exactly. There are so many other ways to prevent this.
Yeah, that's a little.
He had time.
That's a little silly. Maybe he didn't want her to be alive after all.
Exactly.
I don't know. Anyway, so that all ends up getting resolved, and I thought it was so. I mean, resolved in the sense that we find out what happened, connect all the dots and all that stuff. I did think it was a little funny how Russ at the end was the one who was like trying to like resolve the situation between them.
So I was going to say that earlier.
Like the new Russ.
Yeah, like I said earlier, like he listened to the kidnapper. This whole episode, he was extremely compassionate. He was the optimistic one the whole time, and Milt was like the pessimist, being all crazy, just looking at him like, "What is wrong with you, Russ?" So he turned a new leaf. This
I know,
whole
but it was so
episode.
funny because he's like, I mean, think about it. He hired the guy to kill you, but then he jumped in front of the bullet because he loves you so much.
And she was like,
and she's like, no. She's like, I should just forgive him. He's like, well, I mean.
He's like, I'm not saying that, but he did jump in front of the bullet. Russ, you get out of here with this.
I know,
This
it
dude
did
tried to
seem a
kill
little
me.
bit out of character for Russ to be like that much of a forgiveness freak, but I thought it was.
He was all on the whole love kick thing.
I know. Clearly, which we see later, which let's get to that part actually. Well, before we do, Russ ends up getting the number. The doctor, who was like so into him, very obviously, ends up giving him her number at the end. So we're like, okay, whatever, I'm sitting there being like, okay, don't get too close. Don't get your hopes up, girl. And backing up a little bit, one of our B plots of this episode was Holly and Aaron. So Holly had just come back.
You know that guy's name? Or you're talking about Aaron? And then I was going to say, like, you know that coffee guy's name?
No, the coffee boy. I don't remember coffee guy's name. Greg?
Brady?
I
don't know.
Greg or Brady? Anyway.
Whatever.
So
Aaron
and Holly are chatting about how the cruise went and all this stuff. And Holly's pretty much just like, I don't know what's going on because he's not into me, yet he keeps asking me out, but he doesn't try and make any moves. And so Aaron's like trying to give her some tips, like wear a push-up bra, how hard are you putting it out there, sort of thing. And
your pheromones.
Yeah,
get your
pheromones flowing, which I don't know how you, like, I totally get the concept of pheromones and what they are, but I don't know how you, like, make them happen more.
Well, she's saying, ultimately she was saying, when you really want to have sex with that person, they naturally flow.
Act naturally. You can't help it. Those chemicals happen and they connect with other person's chemicals, and it's like.
But the thing is, she wanted to have sex, but it wasn't with him. She really wanted to have sex with someone else, so her pheromones were never flowing towards him.
I know. So yeah, so we learned that Holly is pretty much putting it out there thick, and Coffee Boy is not taking anything.
Her pheromones
were not working, and pheromones don't lie, apparently.
Apparently.
And I guess this guy was not
picking
just
up.
Wanting a little booty. He wanted the real thing, so he wasn't going for it. So they're like right at the end there. Russ is like in doing something with evidence or something, and E and Holly are talking, and she's like, well, I guess I just really wanted to have sex. And she's like, with him? And then
boom,
flash
she kicks
to the
open
scene.
the door.
Yeah, she gets down there into that evidence room, grabs Russ, makes out with him. He's like, wait, what's going on? Blah, blah. And then he just is like, okay, clears off the table. And we're both sitting there watching like, is she going to snap out of a daydream any second now still be talking with E? Like, what's going on? And I'm like,
knew it wasn't real.
I hope not. Well,
I just knew it wasn't real. I knew we were going to pop out of it in the next episode.
When they started like getting up on the table, I thought it was a dream too. With the kiss, like the initial kissing stuff, I was like, okay, I believe this.
This can happen.
But then up, like the throwing the stuff off the table and getting up on there, I was like, oh, okay, maybe not. Maybe this isn't real after all. And then it just ended there.
And then we started a new episode and I was still wrong. It really happened.
Yeah. So yeah, that brings us to episode 12, Homecoming. And it happened. Yeah, no waking up from...
Happened.
It happened, you guys. You know what that means. It happened.
Mm-hmm.
It. Sex.
We've been waiting for this for too daggone long.
I know.
12, 13, 11 like episodes.
11 at least. 10 at least. So... Russ comes in and this is where we also were like, well, maybe was it still a dream perhaps? And Russ comes in and he's like, hey, finger guns at everyone, like high fives, all that. We're like, yes, he got laid.
That happened.
He did. It happened.
The sun was shining on him.
Yeah. And so they bump into each other before getting into the office at all. And Holly Russ is like feeling it, you can tell, like, but trying to play it cool.
He's like, and hey, Holly, how you doing?
He's like, oh, hey, you from last night. And Holly totally downplays it. She's like, I don't want things to be weird around the office. Like, totally cool. Forget it happened. It was fun.
Holly was like, being so rude.
She's like playing it cool, playing hard to get.
Just hurting his feelings left and right.
Oh, please.
Hurting Russ's feelings left and right. The whole episode. We all had to take a moment to feel for Russ because it was just...
I mean, we're hoping like there was going to be some cute, like, flirty awkwardness, which there was a little bit of that, but then she's like, oh, no big deal. Let's not, like, don't worry about it. One-time thing. I was like... Holly, it was not. It was very important to me, at least.
Right. I was like, this is groundbreaking, you sleaze. Oh, just doing my man so wrong.
I know. Well, she didn't completely. So,
exactly.
So Font is back after the shooting. And he, the episode kind of kicks off with them talking about the cases that are coming up. There's a big football game, local football game going on over the weekend, and Font doesn't want to do this case because he wants to go to the game. Well, interrupting that because the head coach's body is found. So, maybe the game might not happen after all. So Milt and Russ end up heading down there. And Milt knows what you said when we were talking about the previous episode, how Milt has a sixth sense about people. And he's totally like, you and Holly did it, and he
237.
Yeah, he has all these like some really great jokes about it. He's like, officer down. I'm like, Milt, like, what are these sex jokes?
It's that guy with this. First of all, when they walked in and Milt was just like sitting there looking at that body, like it was nothing, and then he starts joking with this body.
I know.
Like, hello, head full of blood right here.
Yeah.
Like, not the time.
Oh, I loved his jokes though. I thought they were so funny, and because they were kind of not out of character for Milt, but he's so professional all the time, when he's on the job. So I can see him saying that to Russ when they're in the car or walking somewhere, but he's like at the crime scene and he's making all these like euphemisms for like police terms and sex. Oh gosh, I thought it was so funny.
Well, he was really, like we've learned, he's convinced on being Russ's friend. Mm-hmm. So this interaction was like a friendly interaction.
Yeah, he's like, oh, and I know a secret.
Exactly.
Too.
And like Russ is like, not trying to be his friend. So,
yeah, of course.
He's going to deny it at a time.
Yeah, so we end up, so Milt and Russ also run into Lydia. So we learn a lot about Russ in this episode.
This is
his hometown, his high school, all that stuff. And we run into Lydia, who apparently was his girlfriend throughout most of high school.
Dude, you had sex with her too.
Yeah, I know. He's like, dang, I can see it all. So yeah, she kind of tells him to play it nice, with questioning these kids and all this stuff. And we learned that kind of the first suspect is this guy, TD Edie, Touchdown Eddie Duncan, I think was his name. And that he was kind of a threat, like star football player back in his day, but then kind of didn't have much of a future and, would scream outside coach's house all the time and
punched a kid.
Yeah, punched one of the players, like was hired as equipment manager, but really couldn't hold up that job. So just like, you know, having a tough time since high school. And so that kind of ends up being our main suspect initially. Right. And they go and question Eddie's dad, who is played by Michael Beach, who's been in a ton of things. I love seeing. I ran into him at the gym the other day.
Really?
And I was like super excited about it. It was one of those moments where you pass somebody who's a celebrity, but they're not such a celebrity that you're like, oh, it's Brad Pitt. You know, it was like he looked really familiar, and I'm like, oh, I know you. And then he kept walking, and I was like, no, I don't know you. I've just seen you on TV a lot. Like, he's one of those. Yeah, but he's been on Sons of Anarchy.
Many things.
He was on Secrets and Lies, which just
Soul Food. Yeah, and a lot of different things.
Tons of stuff.
He works with a lot of like student filmmakers too.
Really?
Like, yeah, because I know I had a friend who, you know, directed a film and he was in it. He's really, you know, good at, you know, helping others, and just amazing.
Well, he did
actor.
A great performance in this episode. I thought it was excellent.
That's why I said they pull out all the bells and whistles when it comes to actors from the show. So it's so sad that it's getting canceled.
I know. So they go and meet with Eddie's dad, played by Michael Beach, and we learn that this guy Eddie has some anger management issues. You know, he hits the bar all the time, just like having a hard time since college. And the dad seems to think that football kind of messed him up, you know, a few too many concussions and hits to the head, essentially. So that kind of ends up being our main focus. But then we also, you know, Milt goes to visit this guy at the mattress store, or that.
Well, Russ actually thought it was the assistant coach.
Right, yeah.
Because he just doesn't like the assistant coach.
Yeah, he doesn't like the assistant coach, thinks it's the assistant coach to like get the head coaching job. And the guy's like, dude, he's going to retire in a year anyway. This is high school
1 or 2
football.
years.
I'm good,
okay, not that point.
And we have another suspect that the quarterback from a few games ago who threw like 3 interceptions and then was benched. And that's actually Holly's kind of tip off on that. So they think, okay, well, maybe he was so pissed off that he went and, you know, in a fit of rage, knocked the coach over the head with a trophy. And they go and question that player's dad at...
Well, for me, it's that Milt went and questioned the little boy and was lying through his teeth because Milt has never played football. We learned that Milt was a bowler.
Yeah.
So another thing about Milt, he's lying again.
I know. I actually wrote that down. I said lies with a bunch of question marks after it. Because we learned that Milt, he says, oh yeah, well, when I was in high school one time, I threw 5 interceptions during a game. I hear you, buddy. It's okay.
But he didn't. My coach didn't bench me. He felt I was like a leader and he didn't want to undermine me. But he really laid it on. He was trying to, he was trying to get underneath his skin to get him to, you know, confess.
Yeah, totally. But again, we learned that this football player didn't do it. The dad, though, seems a little fishy. So they go and talk to the dad. They find surveillance video of him yelling at the coach. Ends up not being this dad. So we don't completely have like a solid lead exactly. And I felt like for most of the episode that we didn't necessarily have a...
No, it was really all over the place. You just didn't know. Like, I think a lot of the evidence did kind of point to the assistant coach, and they kind of wanted you to be more focused on him than anything else. But no, this whole episode was weird because we didn't even have a guess at this point.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they pointed us in a few different directions, but no solid one, and all those different directions seem to kind of get resolved. I mean, we do end up learning that a lot of booster money was getting pulled out of the football fund. So first they think it was the coach who was doing it.
He was embezzling.
Yeah, that he was embezzling. Then we learned that it was the assistant coach and that he was buying grades, essentially.
And it says he doesn't think it's illegal.
I know.
I'm pretty certain buying grades at any level is illegal.
Yeah, he's like, I know it's unethical, but I'm pretty sure it's not illegal. Everyone does it, sort of thing. I'm like, hi.
Hello, you have a
bribing teachers for grades so that your students can be eligible to play football is, I'm pretty sure, very illegal.
I'm pretty certain with your teacher's license they say you can't accept bribes.
Yeah, I don't know the exact rules, but I'm like 99% sure that it's illegal.
Or at least against some type of NCAA rules or something.
Yeah, something. So yeah, this coach, he admits to buying the grades. You know, he's like, yeah, they can't play, and that's why we're losing games because our best players are flunking out, sort of thing. So,
but $8,000 over how many months or whatever? Like,
I don't know.
Like how many teachers were we paying off, and for
right?
How many students?
These teachers are pretty like pricey.
Exactly.
They're like
football season is only so long.
I know. So then again, it looks like it's possibly the assistant coach who, something happened there, and he admits to taking the money, but says that he wasn't, he wouldn't kill him, which I guess seems believable enough.
Russ believed it. He let him go.
Yeah, Russ believed him. So they end up going to, before the big game, there is a memorial for two people. So Coach.
Because we now found out that Eddie was
right, we
the
found
John
out.
Doe that Fox didn't want to do.
Yeah, so it's a memorial for Zoransky, the coach, and then Eddie, who had committed suicide, sadly. And that kind of tips Russ off to thinking that it was Eddie's dad. Mm-hmm. And so they bring him back and bring Eddie's dad in for questioning, and the dad breaks down and pretty much blames the coach for his son's troubles, like after high school,
illness.
His mental illness, exactly. Saying that he kept putting him back in, and he pushed him way too hard, and he, which there are plenty of studies now coming out showing that repeated hits to the head and concussions and stuff like that, and football specifically is not really good for the long term for your brain.
And all the dad was really saying, like, give him a rest, but he kept putting him back in, like, he already, like, a parent knows their child, so he knew that it was, basically something was wrong with him, and something was off because he was starting to forget things and things like that. Yeah, his temper and forgetting things and all that, and it got really sad. Talk about
that
a
part in the interrogation room. I mean, he's breaking it. I thought that performance was excellent,
amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
I was like locked on, like, oh my gosh, like I'm so sad for him. Like I get it, why you would do that, But yeah, he felt like his son had been robbed of his future essentially, and then his son ended up committing suicide, and so it was his kind of
that's all he
revenge.
Could think about.
That's all he could do.
Thought.
And yeah, so it was really sad. But and it feels like it was kind of like a PSA for like anti-football or football safety PSA sort of thing. Not like anti-football or anything, but
but like the game still went on and everybody still celebrated.
Not that extreme, but like a football safety sort of thing. Because that's a very real issue going on, like in real world football, like about the injuries and stuff. And like a lot of people, aren't having their kids play football from a young age because so many things going on with the brain.
It's more sensitive at younger ages. So
yeah, and like some football players, I think it's gotten so much better now compared to what it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But, people who, there have been several cases or situations where some of these more old school or retired football players have been, very depressed for a long time, and largely resulting from repeated head injuries or concussions and stuff. So it's like kind of crazy. This one was like a very real
issue that they brought up.
Yeah, but and something that like really hit me when he's talking, kind of confessing, when he said like, oh, I went to pick him up from the bar like I do every night before I go to bed. Oh, I can't imagine. I mean, we're not parents, but that's so sad.
It was a good performance. Like he had us, all the viewers, tore up inside. He did a really great job.
It was really great. So, yeah, I thought his performance was great. I love watching him in anything that he's been in. Yeah, he's awesome. So, yeah, performance is great. It was a heavier episode, I guess, just with that. His performance made it heavier. Not on the whole, I don't think, because it was pretty lighthearted. We did learn so much about Russ. Like
he wrote poetry.
Yeah, he wrote a poem about his bird, Charlie.
Which was actually metaphorically about honor.
Right. Well, he didn't realize it. The teacher was like, oh, yeah, the poem you wrote about honor. He's like, what? She's like, it was about your bird, but it was a metaphor for honor. He's like, was it? Oh.
And then she said that all those good poems that he would just write about explicit women, but really it was like a great, amazing poem.
So that was really funny. And Milt, of course, is like, Oh, do tell.
You were the
like
poet.
Yeah, because he's trying to figure out like what kind of guy Russ was in high school and stuff. You know, were you like the football player, the tough guy, or what? And he's like, oh, you were the sensitive poet.
I think we kind of knew that he was probably the sensitive guy based on the fact that he saved the little guy. That's why he got into the whole fight or whatever.
Right.
Somebody's picking on a little guy.
Yeah, and he's like put up this tough exterior since then.
Learned he was in a long distance and a long term relationship with Lydia. We learned a lot about Russ.
We did learn a lot about Russell.
So I guess it was more of a convincing thing that the caring Russ is the real Russ, and the Russ we saw in the previous episodes is not really who he is.
Yeah, that the more like guard down, real, and slightly sensitive, not like sensitive, but like, you know,
that's why it's so much more natural.
Yeah, is the real Russ. So that was really fun to see too, and I know, like, you know, Milt enjoyed seeing that kind of silly behind the scenes stuff about Russ's life. So let's get back to the kind of fun stuff, the Holly Russ situation. Thing. So as we said in the beginning, Holly's like, oh, it's cool, no big deal. And Russ and Aaron have a little talk, and he's like, yeah, she says she's like cool with, you know, doesn't want things to change and is like just cool with it being a one-time thing sort of thing. And she's like, oh, she is not cool with, like, do not let her let you off the hook like that. You like go pursue that because she's not okay with, you know,
and he
does. She wants it. Yeah, and so he finally does.
I was so for this moment. Like, I was like, yes.
Yeah,
he didn't even think twice about it. He really did it.
He runs out there and he says, and, you know, part of Holly's reasoning was because, and she tells him, she's like, you know, she said why she didn't want to pursue things was because she got accepted to law school and she was going to be moving to Indiana.
Which is not that far.
Which is not that far from Michigan. Okay, come on. And law school's only like 2 years.
Exactly. So she was just like, whatever.
Come on. She's just like, you know, doesn't want to get her heart broken.
Hurts Russ's feelings again.
Yeah, and Russ kind of retaliated for that.
Oh, he was mad.
Threw her under the bus a little bit and kind of spilled the beans about her getting into law school in front of everybody, which everyone's very excited for her, but it was a little spiteful.
It was spiteful because that's not how she wanted to do it.
It was, you know, it's her news to share, and she didn't get to share it. But anyway, back to the end. E kind of tells him, like, gives him that final push, and so he runs out to the hall, has that little moment with her, and is like, I know you said to be hard, and you're probably right, but screw that because...
Well, that actually was stemmed from his conversation with Lydia. Remember, because they were like, they were in a long distance relationship, and he just was convinced it was a long distance. She was like, no, it really wasn't the distance.
Right, it's because
we were working for something else, and we didn't really work for each other.
Yeah, she's like, if we had fought for each other, maybe it would have worked out, sort of thing. And so that kind of plants that seed even more in Russ's mind, and then with E, try. And he's like, okay, we are not just letting this go, and then runs out into the hall. They kiss, and everybody's like, I know, everyone's like, yes, I'm so happy about it. And
and it won't be an inter-office affair anyway.
Yeah, it won't if she's leaving, because she said she was going to put her in notice. So pretty great. I was very happy with the love situation and how that panned out.
So happy, and I was so tired of waiting on it. So it was thank you for giving these to me before you ended this series.
But now we only get like one episode to actually like see what else happens with it, because now it's like getting really fun, I feel like.
I know, I told you, they just threw so much into these 2 episods they knew it was going to end, so it's just like you're just cramming so much information. It's like studying for a test, like just cramming so much information so I can be past the final.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was a lot of fun. So I thought so. And then they end with like they're gonna cook lobsters together. Like, how cute are they? So cute. I love this. I love this new, like, in touch with his emotions Russ. I love it.
It's him getting back to his old ways.
Yeah, I feel like we've come so far from, you know, the beginning of the season where Milt is like Mr. Perfect and has no flaws, and Russ is like Mr. Grumpy all the time, and we're starting to see some of Milt's flaws and kind of the real personality and the real person behind all
Tables
that
attorney.
Pretty Milt. And then we're also seeing Russ kind of let down his guard a little bit and become a little softer too.
Exactly.
So it's fun to see them, you know, more dynamic, real people.
They're more alike than they thought.
Yeah. So why don't we get into some predictions for the finale?
Yes. Our last episode predictions.
I know.
And now, your AfterBuzz
It's bittersweet
TV
predictions because we have 1 episode left in Battle Creek. And as we saw from the little teaser, things look like they get a little sticky in the finale. I mean, Milt has like a breakdown or a freak out in his car, like screams in the car or about something. So Milt is cracking somehow.
I think this is just basically what we were talking about this last time. Like, we're about to see a completely different side of us. We're going to finally learn about it. And I think that's the only thing that they gave us. We're just, it's Milt. We're about to learn the things we want to know.
Well, I think we're really going to learn why he's in Battle Creek.
Yeah.
What the real reason is. They're going to reveal it next week. So we also see in the teaser that Russ is fighting someone in some capacity. I don't think he like gets kidnapped again, but I almost feel like whatever reason, maybe Milt is in Battle Creek because of some crime that went on, and it's like not like witness protection, obviously, because he would
something from his past is coming back.
Something from his past that maybe it was a better decision to kind of get out of like the big FBI spotlight and like move to a smaller town and kind of do things on a smaller scale to get out of that attention of maybe some past bad guy or something, and maybe that bad guy comes back into the picture.
I think it's whatever it is.
Just throwing things out there.
I think whatever it is, that's coming up about Milt, you're going to see Russ fight to help him get over it. So it's going to like just the meshing again.
Right. I think there'll be definitely some like friendship connection going on, and they'll really appreciate each other. Because when we saw Milt or when we saw Russ get kidnapped, they have that moment, they have a big hug and stuff, and then Milt asks Russ to get a beer with him, and you're like, yes, they're gonna be friends, and Russ is like, nah,
not that far.
Yeah. So I think there'll be some culmination of like the friendship, and they'll like,
we're gonna see something.
Russ will finally accept Milt's friendship,
exactly,
and they'll bond. So that's kind
BFFs.
of, no real solid predictions, but those are kind of where I'm leaning.
That's what we hope to see.
Yeah, but it was
in our last
episode,
sad,
I know,
guys.
in the last episode. But I think that covers it for these two episodes. Pretty full after show tonight. I mean, covering two whole eps. And thank you guys out there so much for tuning in. As always, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/AfterBuzz TV. You can also catch all the after shows on iTunes and SoundCloud. Be sure you guys rate, comment, subscribe. We love to hear what you guys think, and we love for you guys to rate us because, it does good things, and we like reading all the good things you guys have to say about the after shows.
How much you love the show.
Yeah, exactly. And be sure to tweet to us as well. We will give you our Twitter again, but we love hearing what you guys think about the show and, what you think is going to happen in the finale, all that stuff. You can tweet at me and find me all over the internet at Lauren Salaun. That's LaurenSalaun. And Gary, tell everyone where they can find you again.
I am Gary Thomas on Instagram and Twitter, and of course I am GaryThomas.com.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.